we'll start with Daniela. Daniela, you're the writer and director of the Blackout. Tell me a little bit about how you got the idea for this film.
The idea came about through many different things. I remember I was reading a memoir by Goldie Hawn called "A Lotus Grows in the Mud" many years ago. But after it came out, so it came to me, like a friend gave it to me. I think you would like this, and I read it. And there was a whole chapter where she describes how in her early 20s, when she was still a struggling dancer in New York City and ready to give up her dream of becoming a dancer because of all the harassment and crazy, patriarchal insanity that was going on at the time with, young dancers. She was ready to give it all up, and she went to the post office to send a letter to her folks saying she was going back home. It was too expensive to make calls. So in the post office, she meets two tourists who've never been to New York before, and she befriends them and say, "We live just around, across the street." And I remember thinking, this is so, where is this going? And then the blackout of '63 happened, and she recounts how that night, everything that happened that night, made her change her mind about instead staying in New York and pursue. And soon after, she booked Laugh In, and her life changed. And she became America's sweetheart. And I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, I love how this story could be one of those movies that is contained, over the course of one night, an ensemble cast, which is one of my favorite things in the world, movies with ensemble casts. And but I wanted to make a movie that was really nimble and easy to make, because I wanted to have that calling card for myself here in the US. And I thought, well, if it's period, that will make it a little more expensive. So I said, I waited, and then Sandy happened. My sister was living in New York at the time, and she started telling me all these stories. My friends started telling me all these stories. So I said, okay, great. We're going to set it in, today's day, and we can have technology as one of the barriers that impede from, people from connecting in a real way. So that's how it came about.
Robert, was there an audition process for this, or did Danielle just reach out and say, I want you for the film?
Danny put me through a physical gauntlet as an audition, and she kept saying, "This is what the role requires." And I was like, archery, swimming? No, actually, there wasn't really a audition, which I was very surprised. Danny took me for a walk around Echo Park Lake, right? And
yes,
we just connected. Sorry about those dogs.
No, it's okay.
We just connected and chatted, and she asked me questions. I tried to answer as honestly as possible and kind of told her, in a perfect world, how I like to work. And she told me about the film, and we had a lovely day together. If we weren't both married, it would have been a very successful date.
And that's how all auditions should be. It's just like
I agree. It was my favorite audition.
Tony, because we didn't have an actual script, I wrote a scriptment, a 50-page scriptment. So we had a beginning, middle, and end for each of the scenes, some of the lines, but not all of the lines, and of course the character description. But I couldn't cast in a traditional way because there wasn't a script to do auditions with. So I needed to know, can I co-create with this person? Can I connect at a human level with this person, on a human level, and then take the plunge, like based on my intuition and that kind of encounter. That's what we do. We did coffee meetings, or walk and talks around Echo Park Lake. That was the whole audition process for me for this movie.
I think anytime you get a group of great actors together, known or unknown, and you put them in a situation, like Larry David does with, kind of an outline and say, get from point A to point B, use whatever talents that you have. I think magic happens.
It was really spectacular to see Rob and everyone else, because we shot in chronological order. That's the one thing that I was very adamant about, and to see them, to see their relationships grow in real life and mirror that in the fiction. It was really neat, and a lot of them write. A lot of them direct now, and it was a very creative and effusive, like lively 2 weeks, wasn't it, Rob?
Yeah, I would say that you really created a culture, and it was really fun to be a part of. And Danny really knows how to talk to actors. She would direct us all and then take me aside and say, "That's all bullshit. You're my favorite. Keep doing whatever you want." And I was like, are you sure? And she's like, "This is your movie. All this stuff is fluff just to set up your character." I'm like, "Danny, I'm not in every scene, are you sure it's my movie?" She's like, "It's your movie. It's going to be called Josh. The Blackout is a working title." And I was like, I love working with her.
Well, Robert, you're a damn good actor.
Thank you.
I think your stint on How I Met Your Mother was Shakespearean. At least Allison Hannigan tells me that there was nothing like it. She felt humbled by your presence as the bartender.
Stop. She is so nice. Even if that is a joke,
no,
I believe it because of how nice she is.
She's a lovely, lovely human being. But you've done so much. I mean, Chicago PD, and of course you're a native Chicagoan, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you know where to eat in Chicago. Gibson's, by the way.
I do. Yeah, I like Gibson's. Gibson's.
But
I
also
really like Bari Foods at 1000 West Grand. If you're trying to eat on a more of a budget than maybe Gibson's, get the Italian with the homemade Chardonnay.
I love Chicago. I really do. It's
me too.
The greatest city
loved
in the
it.
world.
I loved it so much.
But actually getting back to the other stuff that you do, is it hard to host a game show? I mean, that's a whole different acting muscle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a difficult job without being unpleasant, and I think it's really, really, really fun, and I think it's actually a nice connection to the Blackout because, like in the Blackout, I bring a version of myself that is present and in the moment and trying to listen to the people around me. On the game show, it's contestants, but with Danny and the rest of the crew, it was, different characters or whatever. And I think there's a strong connection between given the opportunity to play a version of myself that is pretty authentic and have room to play around with the people around me. I tend to do better in those situations. So I was grateful to have the opportunity to work with Danny on this one because it's fun. And when I'm having fun, I think it looks better. So well, I'll leave that to you, Tony. But
I think it feels better because there is a camaraderie that is on screen that transfers to the audience. We do feel it, that these people like each other. There's something, again, magical about when it all gels.
I'll say I believe my job as like a host is really to make people feel comfortable and to have fun. And interestingly enough, I thought, I don't know, Danny, if you agree, but I felt like my role as Josh in the Blackout, like kind of was centered around trying to make people feel comfortable with humor, but also smaller moments. And
absolutely.
So it's maybe I'm just trying to make everyone feel comfortable, and maybe I need to go back into therapy.
We all do. Danielle, I'm going to give you the last words here because this is your movie. What do you think audiences are going to pull when they see the Blackout? How are they going to leave the movie feeling?
I think, Tony, one of the most interesting things about the process of making the Blackout is that, of course, not in a million years I would have imagined that it would come out right like a year after the whole world has been isolated at home, and dealing with the pandemic and everything that came with it. I feel it resonates in a deeper way somehow now, that if it had come out right after we met it. So I think people are gonna remember what it feels like to be, surrounded with people and in community. And I think people will maybe think, not to take that for granted, or, it's like something nice about, like a mirror, oh, this is what it was like, and and how was it before and how it's now and how can it be after this is all over. I think it's an interesting comparison.
I want to thank you both for your time today. It's such a special treat. Thank you. I'm a huge fan of your father and your uncle. Been trying to get an interview with your dad for like a year now, and he just ignores me. So you tell him. Just tell him.
We have the same experience.
It's true.
I'll give him 3 cherries.
Thank you,
maybe.
Tony.